6:30. I'll call this meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting of the East Troy School District Board of Education and all other meetings of the board are open to the public in compliance with state statute. Notice of the meeting has been sent to the media and/or has been publicly posted in an attempt to make the citizens of the district aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as posted.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on the agenda?
I guess the only thing that I'm just realizing we might want to add it, I don't have a copy of the minutes in my packet. Does everybody else?
I did not either.
Okay. So I guess we should
Have to wait
strike
on them.
that from the agenda as we approve it.
Okay. Any other comments on the agenda? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will skip the minutes for this month and move on to public participation. Is there anybody here tonight that would like to speak? Kathy?
Okay.
Oh, there's a microphone right up there if you could talk into that.
Just a short brief. I guess I have taught summer school for East Troy for over 20 years. And sadly to say, last year we ran into some real difficulties because I do not have a teaching certificate. But I teach 4-H for 45 years through the University of Extension. I have gone, and that's for wildlife, I have gone to 5 states. I was 1 out of 6 out of the United States through the 4-H program to receive an honor at Washington, D.C. I guess my problem is that I'll have to go back and get all the certifications that I need to actually teach summer school in East Troy, which is kind of sad after doing it for 20 years. I did have an aide a teacher that did work with me, and according to the rules and regulations of the East Troy, I have to have a teacher or I have to have the certification. So it's really sad because I taught confidence, I taught reading, I taught history, and I taught math and the confidence in the 4-H, or not in the students. Outstanding students, and those kids have gone on to be some really outstanding students who've gotten jobs in the DNR. The reason I'm speaking is I had so many people come up to me and say, "Why aren't you teaching summer school?" And I said, because we had a conflict. The other conflict was I was only going to get $13 an hour to teach it, and the teacher that was working with me was only going to get $13. I know it's hard but I had sometimes 40 students. How many of you know, do we have elk in the United States? Yeah, we do, elk, we do. How many of you knew about the eagle that died in the Capitol in Madison that helped in the Civil War? And the Serum Trail that in Alaska. There's a mile of all the things that was taught. I have every pelt, I have every fur, I have every antler. I have Native American thing that other kids will never ever get to see. So I guess I know the reason why, because I do not have that certificate, but with all the awards and all the other certificates that I have received, like I said, going to Ohio to school, going to Texas to school, I have all these certificates. So I just want to say I'm sorry that that's one of the reasons why the youth in East Troy did not have a summer school program. And that's why I wanted the public to know that because that's why I've been asked constantly. Thank you. And if you want to see one of those, this is one from Washington, D.C. Department of Ag, all of these. You couldn't get any more higher certification than from these people. So, thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great meeting.
Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Emily Will?
Good evening, school board members. My name is Emily Will, and I am a recent East Troy resident. I realize that there's a rich history in East Troy, much like the small town that I grew up in. We've been here for 4 years. We moved in actually to the Willimans house, which we're proud educators here in East Troy. And as we wrote our letter to them to be able to purchase their home, we knew that we wanted to move to East Troy from New Berlin for the schools. We saw Little Prairie, we saw Prairie View, we saw the academic achievement, we saw so many of the qualities that I saw in my own childhood. And my husband and I felt incredibly convicted that that was the upbringing that we wanted for our children. And over those 4 years, we've been involved. I've coached track at the high school. Our kids are involved in soccer. And, we have tried to ingrain ourselves in the community. And both times that the referendum has come up, we have been proud supporters of it. And sadly to say, the town hasn't supported us. And, I am speaking tonight as a mom, but also as someone who spent, her upbringing in a similar school district. My mom is a public school teacher of 40 years. And so education is something that I feel is deeply important, and it should be deeply important to each and every one of our community members. Without a rich school, you don't have the next level of leaders. You don't have the next teachers. And as we closed off the 21-22 school year, and I watched the last board meeting in June as Dr. Hibner read resignation after resignation, and I started to count them up, and I believe the total is over 20, correct me if I'm wrong, with retirements and resignations. That deeply concerns me. And yes, I know districts around us are all struggling with this, but they have something that we don't. We don't have the public support for our teachers and our educators. And growing up in a similar town, and having a mom that's a public school teacher, that breaks my heart. It also breaks my heart that I have to define whether I'm an East Troy area conservative or not. And if I'm not one of those, then my voice is less heard. And so I would urge each and every one of us to forget whether we're an East Troy area conservative or a liberal or middle of the road. And just remember, we are East Troy residents, and we are all Trojans, and without support for our public schools, there will be no more Trojans. So, thank you. The board, I ask that you would move quickly to a referendum.
Thank you, Emily. That's the only 2 names I have on the list tonight. Anybody else like to speak?
Ted, I wish Kathy would have stuck around. Normally I don't say anything, but obviously I can either say it at my part in the district administration, but I just want to say, because I'd like to provide clarity to what was said. So normally I don't discuss the public participation, and I'll be more than happy to give Kathy a call tomorrow, but Amy, as our summer school director, probably could speak out better than me, but if I miss something, Amy, let me know. And that is, she is right that the state of Wisconsin, it's not East Troy, the state of Wisconsin requires a teaching license for summer school staff. So I don't want it to come across that it's East Troy having this expectation different than any other public school within our state. Mm-hmm. The second thing is, one might say, well, then how was it occurring in the past years then? And she's not able to this year. And she had stated that, and that was there was another teacher in the classroom. So a teacher that had the license, right? So that could occur again, and if we could find a person who wanted to, with the license, wanted to teach the wildlife animal class with Kathy. The comment about the $13 is accurate, but what we pay for a base hourly wage of our summer school staff, which we do recognize, right? I think everybody would not be, everyone's very clearly understanding. Like, we even had to eliminate some classes this year because we couldn't find staff. Right, so if people were to say your base hourly wage isn't enough, our base hourly wage, if I'm correct, is $27.08, right, for this year. So $27.08. That isn't even attractive enough to have filled all our classes, right? I'm not saying good, bad, or indifferent, right? We're trying to be competitive with it. But if somebody were to say, well, wait a minute, then you're offering the individual presenting that, Kathy, 13. No, the expectation of that was if it was going to be co-taught. Right, because we have to have a licensed teacher in there. So we had said moving forward, beginning this year, for the co-teaching models, that it would be $13 in whatever sense for each person teaching the class. Because, or else, in all due respect, I think we'd have a lot of teachers saying, well, $27.08, and if you're going to provide $27.08 for co-teaching, well then, I either want 54 something, or I want to do all of my co-teaching at $27.08. So we had made that pretty clear, I thought, last year during summer school. And even though last year it was brought to our attention that was maybe not known, even though we thought we had presented this quite clearly, then we elected last year to say, fine, for the last year, we'll still provide $27.08 for both individuals in that class, because we absolutely wanted the kids to have that class, and we still did this year. But we made it be known we just couldn't do it again for this coming year. So if we were going to offer it, it either had to be A, through a licensed teacher full-time at $27.08, or B, we were going to have to do the $13 and something for the two teachers. That would be a co-teaching model. It is a wonderful class. I wish Kathy would have stuck around. I mean, it's a great class that the kids enjoy. She does a great job with it, and she does have plenty of accolades. It's just the state of Wisconsin requires the license. It's not in East Troy. And so then what we had to do is work around how are we going to do that. And so that kind of explains it. And we explained it last year. We explained it this year. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood it, that because I don't want people thinking it's an East Troy licensure issue thing that we're requiring, or that East Troy is only giving their summer school teachers $13 an hour. No wonder you have a shortage. I wanted those things to be very well clarified before anybody left.
Okay. All right, thanks, Chris. Nobody else wants to speak. I will move on to the financial report.
I move the approval of May 2022 payments in the amount of $2,598,213.50, and receipts in the amount of $712,890.32 as reflected on the financial statements.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. Anybody have any questions for Kathy, or Kathy have anything else to cover? Okay.
Kathy, can you remind me how much of the ESSER funds we've put in requests for?
Actually, great timing, Anna, because I have been working on the grant claims this week for ESSER. So I'm going to talk through June 30th, even though this was a May report. As of June 30th, we will have spent all of ESSER 2. So ESSER 1 we had spent completely before. ESSER 2 we were working down this year with the middle school HVAC project, the health aides, the long-term subs in our buildings, and the reading interventionist. And like I said, I just made the last claim and ESSER 2 is completely spent. So now we're on to ESSER $3. And trying to remember exactly where ESSER 3 was. That one isn't so clear cut, mostly because I was toying with if I was going to make a middle school HVAC claim or not. But what you have allocated for the budget going forward for ESSER 3 is, I want to say off the top of my head, about $800,000 in staffing in order to balance the budget, because we were given $0 per pupil. So 800,000 of ESSER funds in order to basically status quo and keep the staff and keep running for 22-23 with $0 per pupil coming from the state. And then the remaining, again, another about 800,000, because our total is just over 1.6 million for ESSER 3, is again the remainder of the middle school HVAC, along with some funding for middle school HVAC from our regular budget as well next year, approximately 400,000. So by the end of next year at this time, I anticipate ESSER 3 being all but used up. We'll try to reserve some, but they made the rules on ESSER be that you must claim quarterly. So I can't wait beyond the third quarter to see, you know, for example, if we had a great utilities winter and we had great no snow plowing, and this part that I'm about to say is not great, but this year we operated with some unfilled positions. That would add to positive variance in the budget, right? So come this time next year, I might be able to say, oh, we wouldn't need to claim all those ESSER funds. I could keep them for 1 year more even, but I can only do that with the very last quarter, the March to June reimbursement piece. So we will have most of it expended out, because the middle school project is expected to end, you know, final payments in August, September. So that chunk will be paid out. So it would be a matter of maybe I wouldn't claim some staff salaries and benefits that are being coded to ESSER next year. So we don't have much going for the 23-24 school year for ESSER anymore.
Bottom line, which we'll get into later, but it's basically $800,000 of ESSER that we utilize for this year that we won't have in 23-24, along with the additional structural deficit on top of that.
Right.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that number tonight.
And I'm going back in my memory because I believe we deferred a bus. I believe we deferred buying a bus last year or the year before. This year we're buying 2.
Yep.
And what is our normal schedule?
2.
2 every year.
2 every year. Some years are 1 and a couple of like the smaller vehicles, but still totaling the amount of like 2 buses. So we keep the line item in there whether we buy 2 small vehicles for transport and 1 bus or 2 buses, but normal years it's 2 buses. And the other thing I would say that I just thought of too is if we hire very low, like we're hiring a lot of people, right, because of all of the turnover. If they all come in very low, if they all take cash in lieu of health insurance, and we end up with, come September, a lesser budget need in ESSER, and or we have a great September count. Remember, that's going to predict, or not predict, it will define our revenue limit, and it'll define how much money the school district can receive based upon the pupils. So, like, then I would readjust, and maybe we won't be using 800 of ESSER staffing. We would only need 600 of ESSER staffing. So that's another variable in the equation.
Any other questions? All in favor of approval of the financial report, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion action items. First one is the PSI facility study and preliminary study of contents.
Good evening. I'm just going to quickly talk about what we have here, why PSI is joining us. So again, Performance Services, they'll introduce themselves. Lauren and her team put a presentation together for everybody to talk about our facility study, something that we started, I think, back in early early spring. I know it was pretty cold on the roofs some of those days that we were out there and you guys were out there. So they're going to talk about the facility study and how we're proceeding through with that. We already met with Dale and Steve as part of our operational subcommittee, so they seen the plan last week, but then I'm going to give you, the three of you that did not receive it after the presentation. So without further ado, PSI.
Right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be with you all this evening. Thank you again for the opportunity to work with you and for inviting us in to look at the facilities and to be here tonight to present. We hope that it's extremely useful in helping guide some of your discussion points and answer some of the questions that you have not living in the spaces on a day-to-day basis. So I am Lauren Wanner. I'm the Business Development Manager for Performance Services.
I'm Chris Staub, professional or project development engineer for Performance Services.
And I'm Craig Stranathan, Senior Architect with Performance Services.
So this is just part of the team that was walking through the buildings with Andy and with some of the other staff at East Troy and putting the report together. So we do have a presentation that just goes through a summary of what you'll be receiving in the larger document. We didn't think that we would have enough time tonight to go page by page, but it'll give you some light reading over the next week or so, and obviously any questions that you have, we're happy to continue to answer. So just a little blurb about PSI, just to remind those who maybe don't know or who have forgotten. We were established in 1998 to primarily serve the K-12 market. That is about 98% of the business that we do. So that is our focus. That is what our team of experts really know the best, is K-12 schools and working with the educators. We are an integrated design and delivery project firm, so we have our team of architects, engineers, project managers, estimators, controls, all under one umbrella and in-house to work collaboratively together with the district. We've done over 600 projects. We have a large project value and bonding capacity. We have about 220 employees that span over 10 states. We strive to implement Energy Star into as many buildings as possible throughout the projects that we have. We also really take into consideration energy savings, as that is one of the driving factors in the projects that we do, is helping find the most efficient and effective solutions and being mindful of any energy savings or operational savings that we can. And obviously our number one priority is 100% customer satisfaction, and that is done throughout all of our projects, and we work hand in hand with the administration through our projects to make sure that we are delivering on that promise. So I will turn it over to Chris and then Craig to go through some of the presentation slides.
So this is just going to be a quick overview of the preliminary report and what its contents consist of. Like Andy said, you'll be receiving the full report at the end of today. So the preliminary report will include key findings and recommended solutions of your buildings, conditions of your equipment, life cycle evaluation, and the utility analysis, and more. We did walk through all of your facilities, including middle school, high school, Little Prairie, Prairie View, Dobeck, district office, as well as your transportation facility, and also toured your athletic facilities. And areas of the buildings that we focused on were your site envelope, the HVAC systems, interior,
Just about everything.
just about everything. Yeah.
So, site work, building envelope, interiors, mechanical systems, just kind of a comprehensive overview of every facility.
Correct. So what's here and in what condition is it? So starting with the building overview, just general information about the building, the grade served, when the building was built, if there were additions, what year those additions were added on, and then also some information on utility usage for the building and comparing it to a typical building of that type in southeastern Wisconsin. From there, we would go to the site features.
Sure. Yeah. So from here, we would actually we look into basically everything that's outside of the building. So we're looking at the asphalt paving, its current condition. We're looking at the site drainage, things like that. So anything that's going to affect basically how you operate outside and right up to the walls of the building. And then we move on to the building envelope. So this is going to be, the exterior walls. This is going to be roofs. We have that in conjunction with you have a current roof replacement plan. So we were kind of doing a check-in on that, but following it as far as its recommendations as well. We're looking at doors. We're looking at windows. Any issues that you have on the exterior of the building. Next one. And then finally, we look at the interior. We're looking at finishes. We're looking at current conditions of things like doors and flooring. We're looking for accessibility issues, problems with ADA, things like that. And the other thing that we are looking at is acoustical quality within the spaces.
And so engineering will looked at your heating sources, so whether that's a boiler plant distributing hot water throughout your building for heat, or if you had rooftop units providing gas-fired heat, noting those, the conditions they're in, also what type of control systems you have in place to operate your heating and cooling systems and maintain set points and comfort levels within your spaces. From there, we also noted cooling systems, so whether that is a chiller plant or packaged rooftop equipment, or in the case of Dobec, there are some window air conditioners providing cooling for the offices. Additionally, we looked at your plumbing systems, what type of water heating sources you had, whether it's gas or electric, if there's water softeners available for softening your water, and the condition of the distribution piping. Next on to electrical systems, primarily your distribution panels and main services, what condition those are in, as well as what type of emergency power you have, whether that's generator backup, battery backup, going to emergency lighting for egress, and then also onto in general lighting, whether that's fluorescent, LED, incandescent, what type of lighting levels. We took representative samples in a lot of spaces within the buildings, and we have those within the report, as well as how that lighting is controlled. Is it switches? Is it occupancy sensors, daylighting sensors? How is this lighting being controlled, and recommendations as to how to save energy with different control strategies. So for each building, we actually provided an inventory of all of the HVAC equipment. So every single piece of equipment is identified. So I should say major pieces of equipment, air handlers, rooftop units, boilers, pumps, what condition they're in, how old they are, recommended service lives based on ASHRAE historical data, as well as potentially how many more years of life we'd recommend before looking at scheduling a replacement. And kind of to tie everything together into an easy to read single page, we do include a preliminary recommendations page in the front of the report, which identifies various categories that we've talked about, the exterior, interior, site, systems, as well as your different buildings, and kind of giving them a rating of low priority for replacement, medium priority for replacement, or high priority for replacement. And kind of, as we'd expect with Little Prairie being the newest school, you can see it's mostly greens right here. But as you get to some of the older facilities, you start seeing more reds as you end up nearing or exceeding the particular system's life expectancies or conditions. Additionally, each recommendation within the report is also tied to a proposed budget that we've put together. This is an estimate based on it being kind of an individual project, so the numbers are probably fairly conservative. Additionally, in working with Andy, we have kind of identified what sort of priority level we would associate each of these projects with. And this is currently at a building level. We still need to meet with the district to identify a district-wide priority rating that looks at all the buildings and all of the needs at those buildings.
Essentially a master plan for what projects you'd want to address first versus what you might want to wait on. So, and then we'll talk about what are the next steps. So we have this snapshot of the current facilities condition. What we're going to do next is we're going to meet with building leadership and district leadership. We have a couple of meetings scheduled within the next couple of weeks to review, basically what works within the buildings, what doesn't work, what are the things that you can't do now that you would like to do, and find those things and turn them into what are the potential projects that they could be. After we figure that out, we'll be there to support any additional community engagement processes that you'd want to follow up with, and let's see, pretty much use that to that combination of the existing snapshot, the programming elements that we found, and the community engagement to come up with recommendations that would be the best for East Troy. Questions?
No questions for PSI right now, right? Okay. So what I like to say is, I don't remember how many pages, like 150 some pages are on this facility study. I would like to say that this is basically half done. I think it's a great study. Came to no cost to the district. Hours and hours, I would say at least 60 hours were spent in our buildings by performance services. But again, they're not done. They're going to be meeting with me and my staff. They're going to be meeting with IT and their staff, the principals around the district. And that what they're going to be really digging into is, again, the programming, how the buildings are being utilized. Are they being used adequately? I know they touched on some of that already. But those are our next steps, and that's what eventually is going to work us towards a complete study. So it'll take some time to get there. But that's what our next step is going to be. So when I give this to the other 3 board members that haven't received it yet, I'm just going to caution you guys about a few things that we already had the opportunity to caution Steve and Dale about, and that's costs, right? You look at some of these costs that are associated to some of the projects. There's some projects that they have several options. So you can't just look at like one full dollar amount when you start, like what they did is they broke it down to all the high priorities and what all the high priorities would cost in one individual building, but there's still different options in there. So please don't be sticker shocked by some of the costs. We still have the middle school in this as not being done because it's not being done, so you never know what was going to happen. So I wanted them to keep the middle school projects in there. So basically when you go through that, a lot of the middle school stuff that was in red is going to be completed. Another one that comes to mind that I don't want you guys to be concerned about is when you start looking at the age of the equipment here at the high school, a lot of it's at or beyond its life expectancy. But it's not the same situation that we had over at the middle school. This is still equipment that I feel like we can maintain and get quite a few years out of. So again, it looks like we might need to replace like 16 units again all of a sudden. Don't be concerned about that. I feel like we have that under control. But if you have any questions, any of you, even Steve and Dale, like if you have any questions after really starting to get through this, Anna, I think you're going to get through this in one night probably. Feel free to email me. I can answer any questions you have. And again, if something pops out and you are concerned, email me right away. So.
Oh.
On all these, could they include in the electrical, like what percentage of those, like middle school's got 1,200? Are we using all of that? Because it seems like we're always adding different things in the buildings. Are we at capacity on the electrical?
For electrical services?
Yeah.
So the nice thing is we're adding more energy efficient equipment as well. So that helps balance it a little bit. But if I'm understanding, you would like to maybe see a little bit more on the electrical side to see it, how.
Are we at, we usually.
Are we 80%? Yeah.
Are we,
Absolutely.
approaching 100%? And I know we're changing the LEDs, and that saves a lot. But we're also adding things in the labs.
Yeah, we can grab peak demand numbers and get those in there so you can see worst case in a year what your draw is, and it'll be 50-60% typically.
Yeah.
So question, are you able to help Andy out on the power factor correction Is he gonna?
I have not told them that news yet, but I feel like I'm gonna have that under control, Dale. I assure you.
Okay.
That's gonna be my pet, my child that I gotta take care of this year, so.
Well, then this sheet, I like this sheet, is nice, you
Mhm.
know. So is this something that would be a little bit more accurate than this, or how do they two relate to each other?
Those two are completely separate. I would view those as two different documents. That, what Dale's referring to is I provided at our our operational subcommittee what projects we had kind of identified for the last referendum and what we've completed, even though that referendum didn't pass. And we completed some of those projects because of some of the positive variance caused by underspending during the COVID times. Utility costs were down. I think there were some staffing, reductions not reductions, but staffing things that happened during COVID that were unfilled. So it provided positive variance, so we were able to tackle some of those projects. So that's what that is. So anything in that document is not going to show up in this document. And that's something that I'm going to continue to update until maybe everything's off, which will be
so
years.
This document will be added, things in this document are new above and beyond this document.
Well, except for roofing and asphalts. You're going to see the roofing and asphalts are going to be on that paperwork that you just showed up, that document. That's going to be on there for a long time. So, but obviously we got the roofing and asphalt in this facility study.
And then the energy usage, I noticed when we talked, that was higher than what you expected for a building that we have. Have you identified why that would be higher? Has PSI identified?
So what he's referring to is the energy intensity, I believe. So when I did go through that. Again, that's something that we will sit down with. I kind of figured you were going to pull that out, Dale. Like I told you in our meeting, that doesn't mean that we're bad either.
No, I understand that.
What I got to do is sit down with performance services and help gain more knowledge on why it looks like we are a little bit higher in this category and that category versus average school buildings or school buildings to our average size and
Yeah, I just
age.
thought that maybe they could help give you a hand on some of these issues.
Oh, yeah, I know they will. Yeah.
So,
And we will be, and some of that comes down to how the buildings are being operated, so we need to get more dialogue with Andy to really narrow that down.
because I'm just looking for more assistance from you for Andy to reach these goals. That's
Yep.
what I'm looking
He
at.
has us on speed dial, so.
Is this revisited annually then? When do we do this again to keep check on, all the things that we're watching or new cracks that appear, new, problems that?
Yeah, so things like roofing, that's inspected annually. Things like asphalt parking lots, that's inspected annually. Our mechanicals are inspected annually. I could go on and on. But as things change, because, we might have something that's not on our radar, if it shows up, we're going to get in. And this is going to be a living document. It's going to be like the Bible of East Troy, in my opinion. So as things come off of this, we're not going to take them out of there. We're just going to check them off. And as new things are identified, we're going to add them to the document. Is that what you mean, Anna? Okay.
There's nothing in the document, too, in the analysis that PSI has performed up to this point in time, too, of the original referendum, which had 8 million in maintenance. And everybody, everyone has stated from the very beginning, it was never 8 million only in maintenance needs in the last referendum. It was the highest priorities that we identified of the maintenance needs. We are well beyond 8 million. We had that identified long ago. But the positive thing is, when you look at this document, not a one of those 8 million, they're all identified in here, and they're identified in the red. So it's not like you look at the 8 million and go, where is that in here? Like, those things that you identified before, they're in here. Now, like Andy said, some of them have been getting addressed to the scope that we can with any positive variance, but some, and obviously we hope for some of those. The way we've been picking apart at them is we've been trying to attack the ones that'll provide us some cost avoidance on the energy efficiency sides. So that's how we've been prioritizing which ones get addressed first. But I'm happy about that. The other thing I really like in this book is you'll notice when you get to the back ends and PSI is identifying from their ranges. They did a low to high range on the budget projections, but what I also like is they also did it on a deferment. So if projects get deferred, how much possibly will they cost over a course of time, years down the road? And that's not on the cost avoidance component, right? And what could be on a savings if we would have done it, that's just on a cost of the project itself. And as we know, with where things are, projects getting delayed. I understand why, but obviously a much different expense than what they were even 5 years ago, more or less even 2 years ago. So I think that's really a benefit. And then I just want to reiterate what they said earlier, and that is this part right now of the book is on the physical parts of the building. Now we're also going to look and continue to do the part on space of the buildings in regards to programming and learning and the curriculum. And that's what they're going to meet with the different departments and leadership teams and all departments, just so people know. Like, we have the transportation department coming, the food service department. We have each building principal, and then they're representing people from their buildings, right? And administrative assistants possibly from the buildings. So different people being representative to talk about programming, learning, and the functionality of their buildings, so we can come back and go, okay, from PSI's perspective, is all space being maximized? And then we can talk from there. So then that's when Andy says it's about half. That's because we still need to look at that functionality component.
Yeah, we need to engage the staff. So any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, next item, updated Baird model forecast.
So, there are no page numbers on your booklets today, but we are on the pages right behind the financial report. So where the skyward prints stop, probably about 20, 25 pages in, that's where I'm looking. The first page, horizontal spreadsheet type, is a start of a summary sheet. If you have been on the board when we've been developing past referenda, you know that this sheet starts to grow more and more in detail as time goes on and as people think of new scenarios that they want costed out. So from the last board meeting, we talked about 1, 2, 3 pages in was that selection page, that board worksheet where we all voted on assumptions. And then the direction was, okay, Kathy, put those assumptions into the Baird forecast model. And that's what we were supposed to come with today at the board meeting. So, and you had suggested to do one version at a 2% salary increase going forward and one version at a 5% salary increase going forward. So both of those models are in here, expanded. And then on the summary sheet up at the top, you can see that both are listed. So you can see the difference is about 420 to 515,000 because we're averaging the next 5 years. So 5 years worth and extra costs compound as time goes on. So the difference between running a 5% salary in next year and all the years beyond versus a 2% again is an extra 422,000 in the first year all the way up to 515 in the next year or in the last year. Because of where we are in the Baird forecast model, it only goes out 4 years. So I really just recopied year 5. I just, it took year 4 and made it one more year. The new deficits are on the first lines, and the way the Baird forecasting model does it is it compounds the deficit. So it talks about in 23-24, we're looking at a $2,327,900 shortfall right now. And then it presumes if we didn't fix that problem, in 24-25 it would grow to $3,081,776, and then if we didn't fix that problem, it would grow to $4,048,000. So the board that I've worked with here for 13 years has always made it a top priority to balance the budget each and every year and not carry that problem over from year to year. The exception is this last year, our philosophy changed a little bit because of the ESSER funds. So the ESSER funds are a problem that is making that 2.3 million, 800,000 higher like we talked about, because we balanced the budget this coming year on funds that we don't anticipate being renewed. Miracles can happen. Maybe, something will come from the federal government again, but there's no indication right now that any sort of ESSER is going to be renewed beyond what's been given to public schools. So you can see the lines there. We have the compounding deficit. Well, then the next line is how we've always, again, attacked a budget. Like, we balance one year. So then what's the problem the next year? Well, it's not 3 million, it's 753,000 because you did reduce the 2.3 million through cuts. Or, again, we put assumptions into here like 2% salary. Well, what if we gave salary freezes? We put assumptions in here like 8% insurance. What if insurance changes are made and it's a 0% or something like that? And frankly, again, that's how we've, again, balanced the budget year after year after year with revenue limits, is either limiting salary increases, changing insurance plans and benefits, or reducing and changing positions. So 2% salary model, those projections, 5% salary model, those projections. And to get us talking, even though I believe we'll be setting up a workshop in the next couple weeks, but on that same summary page is, okay, well, what if we went to referendum then? And I'm talking an operational referendum here right now, to meet the needs of those deficits. So basically solve the deficit problem. There's two basic structures. You can, again, change these structures around in all kinds of pretty ways, but if you're going non-recurring, and recurring is a whole different structure too, but if you're going non-recurring, your basic structures are take your deficit over 5 years, divide by 5 so that you get an equal amount that you're going to the referendum for every year. Or some people call a sample 2 like a step or an escalating referendum, because again, the deficit is escalating year after year after year. So rather than averaging out the total of the deficits over 5 years, you could go for what you need in year 1, then increase it a bit in year 2, then increase it a bit in year 3. Pros and cons. Some like to do the sample 1 because really you have to bite the bullet in year 1. Then your taxes are set at a higher new level. And then years 2, 3, 4, and 5, there's not much of a tax change after that point. Sample 2, you get a little bit of the tax increase in year 1, but then you get more again in year 2, more again in year 3, so that pain, if you will, of the tax increase is spread over 5 years, but there's more of a tax increase every year then. So this is, starting to be a look here of what it would cost. Previous referendums, we've never tried to tackle the full amount. We've never gone to the taxpayer with an amount that would equal the entire deficit. We've still said we're going to be frugal, we're going to make changes. So, the last time we went 8 million, I believe it was, over 5 years. It included some money to offset the deficit, but some money towards what you just heard were maintenance projects. And then we always are a little bit frustrated when we talk about it because it's still not enough, but you have to balance again, and you know that, and I know that, the needs of the taxpayer too. So that's an overall summary of what's going on in the next 4 pages. And should we talk about a possible workshop then?
Yeah, we'll do that during my
Okay.
presentation on the
Okay.
district board. Kath, I had a quick question. That
Yes.
is, you have the 2% salary model and the 5% salary model?
Yes.
Which came from the board and the discussion at the last board meeting. And
Yes.
just so people understand, those numbers aren't just taken out of thin air either. Like the 5% was kind of like in anticipation of maybe where CPI might be within a year or two, right? Obviously, we know where CPI already is now. So I don't think it's far-fetched at all to think it's 5% or higher next year. But what I wanted to ask was, at the top, like on the 2% salary and the 5%, it says that 4% salary in 22, 23, then 2% after? Or was it 2% applied throughout the whole thing?
Yes, so, yeah, I think
Top right,
he's on this
on the
big
assumptions.
expanded model.
yeah,
Yep.
on the Baird model at the assumptions.
Yep,
And so I just
so,
wanted to find out whether or not, was it 4 in the 1 year and then 2 after that, or is it 2 across, Kath?
okay, so the 4 is already done and gone, because the 4 was for this coming year.
Oh, it's not 22, 23. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, this year, you're saying.
Yep,
I was
but the
putting this year.
referendum
Got it.
planning is for
Yes, for 23,
23, 24, and on.
And so we're due 2% after that.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then also,
And if
Because-
you recall, we put 4% in the model starting like in November, but then CPI ended up being 4.7.
Yep.
So that's what the difference is there. So basically, that page is 2% going forward now, whereas the other
one's
page is
5 now.
5% going forward after the 4% was put in this year, which then ended up changing to 4.7, and that ended up being an impact need.
and what people, I just want to make sure the public's aware of too, within these assumptions, even with that structural deficit that we're projecting, which is significant, we're also projecting, and it's just a total assumption, right? But a per pupil increase going back up to at least $100, and it was at 0.
Yes.
So, I mean, yeah, could be above that, could get up to the 200 mark, but could stay at 0 again still. And what this structural deficit on this Baird model forecast is, we're saying even at $100, this is what our deficit would be.
Kathy, could you kind of explain, I'm sorry, I got a question, on this total school bags tax levy? I see it goes down 23, 24 by 10%. Why is that?
The projected tax levy changes?
Yeah.
Yep, so the aid, basically that Baird, and this I leave to Baird because I cannot project aid forecasting. But basically, we're getting more aid from the state in a faster pace than we are getting revenue limit. So revenue limit is, again, how much we get to spend, and it comes from 2 sources. It comes from state aid and it comes from property tax. When the state gives money in state aid, which they like to say is funding for schools, all it really does is reduce your property taxes. Okay? Because they don't change, like, we've had $0 per pupil. So if our revenue limit was 16 million, it's been 16 million. But our state aid has maybe gone from 4 million to 5 million to 6 million. I'm just using round numbers here. But then that means your property tax levy goes down because state aid goes up, but yet this limit's frozen. The limit's the same. So in the Baird forecasting model, again, with all their aid assumptions, and is it a crystal ball? Absolutely. But they project that we will grow in our state aid, meaning our property taxes will go down, but again, our numbers not changing, so that's what's making the tax rate go down. The mill rate is taxes per $1,000 of property value.
Okay, then the other question I had on the,
When I was a student, I'm just gonna add this, when I was a student in business manager class, I said, wouldn't it be great if we could just keep the mill rate the same? Like if our state aid increased and that we wouldn't have to use it against property value, that essentially we could like increase our revenue limit to make the mill rate stay the same, and no, it doesn't work that way. But I think that's been, not that it's a bad thing again, that's been a mission of the state the last decade, has been to reduce property taxes. So, you know, if on our annual meeting, you'll see our mill rate, it goes like this. And that's still what's projected to keep happening here, is our mill rate going down.
so that is reflected in the average tax impact per $100,000 on the
Yes.
home. So that's not representative of above and beyond what we're already paying now, but that's the base of what we're paying to the school system, I want to say?
Yes,
Okay,
yep.
so that mill rate keeps on going down to $701 per $100,000 house.
701, so you're looking at the 26-27 school year, and the mill rate would be 701, the projection, so yeah, it would be $701 for a $100,000 home, yes.
Okay.
And right now, it's 834, so right now it's 834.
Okay.
That's if there's no reassessment going on, but that's,
Well, we just had a reassessment.
we just did, so,
Yeah.
well, the town, but every community does them differently, so.
Okay.
Yeah, in general, I had a couple state averages. I mean, again, it's been the philosophy of the state to be trying to reduce taxes. The average mill rate in 2021 was $9.22. The average mill rate in 21-22 is $8.64. So,
I thought too, because this kind of works in, so I won't wait until the informational piece at the end, but at the end of your board packet, there's a Wisconsin Policy Forum information sheet that comes from Wisconsin Policy Forum, nonpartisan, and it talks about Wisconsin ranks and school spending tax burdens fall together. I don't know if you had a chance to read that, but I mean, it is there's just some, again, it's about picking and choosing. I'm not saying sides, nor are they. They're just sharing their data. But some of the things that I wanted to point out was in their information they're sharing, they state that Wisconsin's spending ranked its 25th highest among 50 states in 2020, down from 24th the previous year and 11th in 2002, the earliest year in the available data from the Census Bureau. The caps on school revenues in 21-23 state budget may drive additional drops in Wisconsin's ranking in upcoming years. So 2002 it was 11th in spending, and now we're 25th in spending on that side. And obviously with the $0 per pupil increase to education, I would imagine as they're staying, it probably will drop even more. State spending lags nation. Per pupil spending on public pre-K-12 schooling in Wisconsin, it did grow from $8,574 per pupil in 2002 to $12,740 in 2020, an increase of 48.6%. However, that was the third smallest rise of any state after Idaho and Indiana. Over the same time period, the nation's per pupil spending grew by 75.2%, from $7,701 to $13,494. Just very telling numbers. And then the next releases of per pupil spending, they believe will also show probably the effects of the 21-23 state budget. And then they go on to talk about the drop in the state per pupil spending rate occurred over the same years that Wisconsin was reducing its tax burden, as Kathy talked about, or the share of the residents' income paid in state and local taxes. From 2002 to 2019 are not yet available for 2020. This percentage dropped from 11.2% to 10.3%. This drop of 0.9 percentage points may seem relatively insignificant, but it amounted to $2.59 billion less in state and local tax revenues collected in 2019 alone by having done that. State and local taxes are the primary funding sources, we know, for pre-K-12 public education in Wisconsin nationally. For example, in 2019, state and local revenues funded 93.4% of Wisconsin's school spending and 92.3% of the nation's. In addition, pre-K-12 education, as we know, I agree with this, is the largest expense for state and local governments combined, both in Wisconsin and across the country. That relationship makes it difficult to hold down taxes, with consequently limiting education spending. Which I think goes to the final thing, and I think they're right on, and that is there's decisions and trade-offs, right? There's decisions and trade-offs, and they don't get into which one's right or wrong, but they just state public policy is always an exercise in trade-offs, and elected officials often seek to weigh the potential benefits of lower taxes against those of additional services. The results of school referenda in Wisconsin indicate that many voters in recent years may not be satisfied with the spending allowed by the state revenue limits on local education. School districts seek and voters approve a referendum when they believe that their existing state and local revenues, which are capped by the state, are not sufficient to meet their needs. A 2020 forum brief reported that voter approval rates of the school referenda generally increased from 2000 to 2020, indicating voters' appetite to increase funding for education beyond what their usual taxes would bankroll. Yet so far, at least, the local spending increase due to the referenda has not changed the long-term trends outlined here. Even with these additional dollars, Wisconsinites are still paying less of their home in taxes, and the growth in spending on elementary and secondary education has been slower in this state than nationally. Voters and officials' decisions will ultimately impact both their own pockets and the capacity of public school districts to serve and educate their children. I think I would highly recommend everybody read that article. And I don't just mean the school board. I mean the entire community. I love the Wisconsin public policy. It's nonpartisan. They just state the facts. And I think
It
they're
is
just
posted on our
stating it.
website, under the business manager page. On the right-hand side, there's links to press releases. It's posted there.
Thank you, Ken. I just think it's really imperative article for everybody to read. And each month they come out with an article. I think it's really good for everybody to stay informed.
Kathy, can you dig up for next time? I think some time ago you showed us our revenue limit history and it went back. I mean, we've been essentially locked in for how many
Okay.
years? 15, 12,
1893 was when revenue limits started.
right?
And at that time, schools were set at the
Right.
rate they were currently spending. So if you were a high-spending school district at that moment in time, lucky you.
Keep it rolling.
If you had a big project that year, lucky you, because your spending per pupil that year was great. When I looked at where we got locked in back in 1993, we were at the 15th lowest percentile, 15th. So, and then you get the same inflationary increase every year as everybody else. So there's this, again, whether you were spending $7,000 that year or you were spending $10,000 that year, you would get a 2% increase or a 1%, proportionally the same on the revenue limits. Until now, it's become, again, like you're getting 0 on the revenue limits. But still the gap continues because you're frozen less. The couple things we've done to raise our revenue limits are, again, when you've had an operational referendum. There was a time here where we did have a 10-year operational referendum. 1999 to 2009 is my feel of when that was. Sounds about right. And it was a very small amount that would raise your revenue limit per student. And then the other thing is transfer of service. So if you, and there's very limited examples of transfer of service, but like one thing we went through as a county is that Lakeland School District, which is the special education county school, had us take on our own special education staff at one point. So it transitioned from being a county cost to a public school cost. So each individual school district took on their own 5 special ed teachers or occupational therapists. And whenever you got to transfer from another governmental entity, then you got to add to your revenue limit. And so that's one source of transfer service. The other is now when a child with special needs, again, moves in from another public school and maybe a 1-to-1 aid is necessary, or a number of special ed services. Again, that's a transfer. They came from Fort Atkinson over here, and you can attribute that cost over and above on your revenue limit worksheet. But that's about it. That lets you, adjust your revenue limit. Other than that, it's enrollment. Enrollment drives your revenue limit. Basically, it's how many kids you have, 3-year rolling average, times a number. So 15th percentile is what we were set at. But I can dig up that graph again that
Yeah, I
shows
mean, I know there's been little bumps and it's gone
Yep.
up and down, but I
Yep.
mean, even just dollar to dollar, right? When you look
Yep.
at what do we get now and what did we get 10 years ago, and we all know how much more things cost in the world.
Yeah.
It's just, I know it's one data point,
Yep.
but I think it's pretty telling.
Last time we had that for the referendum, we said like if you would have added all those years, it was 25 more million compared to the state average again that we were at, like not even the highest spending school districts, but the state average. So sure, I'll dig that up.
And don't quote me on it. I think what Anna's kind of getting at too is, I believe, and I don't have that information in front, but that we had shared it, and don't quote me on this, but like at one point in time, what our revenue limit was in 2009, and it took until 2015, and that we had the same
Yep.
exact revenue limit in 2015 to 2009.
Can you also look at the Baird model? It doesn't matter which one, but look at the 2% one. Just, I was trying to understand over the weekend the line that's fund balance and fund balance as percentage of expenditures.
Yes, so what that shows, those two lines, fund balance and fund balance as percent of expenditures. Basically, if the board, remember how I talked about every year you make the conscious effort to balance the budget.
Right.
Let's say you said, we're not gonna do that, okay? You are not gonna make any changes to lower salary. You're not gonna make any changes to insurance. You are not gonna cut staff to balance the budget. Then what happens is, well, okay, your expenses are gonna exceed your revenues, and you will dwindle down the balance that's called fund balance. And I could go on and on about fund balance because it's also your cash flow, okay? And we don't have enough even to make our cash flow work at our school. So we have to still short-term borrow on top of our fund balance, but that's a whole different conversation. But so basically what that means is, okay, so each and every year, your expenses are gonna exceed your revenues. You're gonna dwindle down that fund balance until the point where it becomes zero. And so what they show you on your forecast is between 24-25 and 25-26 is that point that it would happen, that we would have no fund balance anymore if we stopped balancing the budget. And then a couple things go. There's one school district that's facing this right now. I thought I took notes because I asked Baird to. I said, in reality, seriously, because, we all talk about this, like there could be this point where you spend down your fund balance and what happens. And they say, well, most of the time, boards realize you can't do that, and so it never happens because you have to right your ship and you have to have revenues coming in equal to your expenses or exceeding your expenses. But if a school district did let that happen, Baird said short term, and there's one school district they're dealing with now that's on this, you get an operating loan that is kind of like our cash flow borrowing we do, but a little different. So you get an operating loan, and then if you still don't right the ship, you have to vote to dissolve or approve an operational referendum. Those are your only two ways out at that point. Because you don't have money to operate.
Thank you. And just because I can't get it, the percentages underneath it, as percentage of expenditures.
So basically, it's just taking that fund balance number and making it be a percentage of your budget. So,
I see.
yep. So like in 23-24, you'd be at 17% of your fund balance to budget ratio.
Got it.
And then by 24-25, you'd be at only 4%. Then between those 2 years, there'd be a point in time where you hit zero. And then they pretend that you keep operating,
Right.
even though
In the negative, yeah.
Yes, in the negative. But I say this was kind of an aha moment to me too. Like, we are not the federal government. We can't have trillions of dollars of debt. Like, that's a foreign concept to me when they talk about.
Just need a printing press.
Yeah. Again, that's not how a person's home budget works, and it's not how a school district's budget works. We don't get to call up the feds and say, just print us more money. So we would be, again, at that point of either you right the ship, so you cut your expenses again to balance. Again, short term, you can operate on a special different kind of loan, but then you're to the point of you either have to vote to dissolve or you have to get an operational approved to fund your district. Last workshop I was in, Baird mentioned there is one district in the state of Wisconsin that's now operating with 50% of their budget as an operational referendum. So if their budget is 10 million normally, they have a 5 million operational referendum to be at. Like half of their funds now are coming from an operational referendum.
So essentially what this is saying, if we did nothing in 2 years, we'd be
Bingo.
bankrupt.
Yes, that's how fast. And I think
Right.
what's scary about that is, I mean, some of you have been around long enough, right? I've been here, this is my 16th year. When I first arrived, the fund balance was at around 9%. 9%. So we've worked diligently to improve that fund balance. And so now it's up to 28.46%. 28.46. Now, we still don't have enough, as Kathy said, we still have the short-term borrow, which is unfortunate, truly, because we could be saving money if we had. But the reality is, though, it's taken 15 years to go from 9 to 28. And there's been some tough discussions, because there were a few years where we actually put fund balance as a structural line item to increase it by 300, 400,000. And we made tough decisions to put money over into fund balance when it was so low. But within 2 years, if we were to use just the fund balance to address the 2 years of structural deficits, it'd be down to 4.24% in 2 years. So 15 years to take it from 9 to 28 something. And if we address just all the structural deficits through the fund balance, we will take it from our 28 down to 4 in 2 years.
Unbalanced worksheet for you sometimes. I calculate a little differently that percentage that you're mentioning. I take Fund 10 plus 27 and subtract the transfer and do the percentage off of that, because I think both of those, Baird, I think only uses Fund 10. So if you wonder, like, but it's meant to be a measure of the percentage of your budget that's in fund balance.
Thank you. This is super helpful.
Especially for Wednesday.
I know it's not fun, but
No.
thank you, Kathy.
Okay. Yeah, anybody have any questions of Kathy, or more questions, or good for now? Okay, thanks, Kathy. Staffing resignations.
Oh, yeah, we have a few, unfortunately, in the packet due to various reasons. Again, I do always like to point that out, because I think with the number we've had this year, right, that some people might be inclined to just say, wow. And I am, I don't doubt that, but I am saying, please remember that some of them have been retirements, some of them are relocations of families. And then, yes, we've acknowledged it, right, through our exit surveys, through what they're even saying in their resignations. They tell us pretty straightforward that sometimes it's about being able to receive more on a salary base at another school district, or just the lack of stability from their perspective and wanting to go somewhere that maybe seems to have more stability, possibly because they have an operational referendum or something where they feel more stable, those type of things. So the first one is, would you like me to read them all again tonight? Do we want to continue? I mean, they're pretty lengthy, some of them, too.
I think it's
I don't
good.
think-
Okay,
Yes.
all right. So the first one, I'm sorry, Dale, did you say something, too?
I just say, I don't think we need to read every.
Oh.
I think it's good for the public to hear.
All right, so the first one, I'll let you guys decide that in the future. I'll read them tonight, and we can decide in the future. The first one is from Caitlin Steffen. The East Troy Community School Board. Dear East Troy Community School Board, please accept my resignation from my position as a special education teacher at Little Prairie Primary for the 22-23 school year. After much consideration, I've decided to take a teaching position with the Elkhorn Area School District. I have enjoyed my time working in the district and will miss my students and coworkers. Thank you for the support and guidance you have provided. I've learned so much and made many great memories during my time in East Troy. I wish you all the best. Can be reached at my personal phone number. I won't share that, it's not in there, but or email address should you have any questions. The second one is from Kristen Shipakasi. Kristen states, Dear Kent and Stacy, this letter is to inform you of my resignation as the school counselor at East Troy High School, effective June 27, 2022. I will submit documentation showing the days I am working for the required summer days for 21-22 school year that are already scheduled in June in order to cover the duties relating to summer school and next year's schedule. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time at East Troy High School. It is a district filled with wonderful people, from staff to students and families. Each person has helped me to continue to grow and learn in my profession, and I'm very grateful for the wonderful opportunities I've been able to be a part of in this district. East Troy Community School District is really trying to do a lot in order to give students as many personalized opportunities as possible. However, with the continued cuts to staff, that means there are fewer people overseeing the same amount of responsibilities to keep these programs and systems running. This led to my decision to leave East Troy High School, since the growing number of our responsibilities would conflict with my ability to meet the growing mental health needs of our student population and would make maintaining a work-life balance challenging, so I could be there for my own family. I truly wish everyone the best in the high school and the district. I made some great connections here that I will very much miss. Sincerely, Kristen. The next one is from Joe Jenna. Joe's a learning specialist at our high school, who is a learning specialist, is what formerly maybe would have been known as special education teacher. We reframed it to a learning specialist due to the fact it's much more than just a special education teacher. He is, just states very clearly and quickly that he is not going to be returning to East Troy School District next year. He was able to secure a teaching position elsewhere and has just signed the contract the other day, and that he will be turning in his keys and obviously computer and any other materials. Joel Jenna. To Dr. Hibner, Ms. Keene, and the East Troy School Board, as you know, I did not sign my contract for the 22-23 school year. Please accept this letter as a resignation from East Troy School District. This has been an extremely difficult decision to make. 8 years ago, when I started at this district, I very much wanted to make this community my home, and had hoped this would be the last school district I would work for. But these past 8 years have been more trying than I anticipated. Each year, I would tell myself that the next year would have to be better than the current year. This past spring, I actually had one of my best trimesters. I was able to finally balance my work and personal life and reduce the professional stress of my life. I thought that if I could teach the same classes again next year, I might actually be able to relax and enjoy my professional life at East Troy High School, which in turn would allow me to be a better teacher for my students. I've seen now this burnout I have experienced has affected my personality, which in turn affects how I teach, and I do not like it. However, another referendum did not pass, as we all know, and I was told that I was needed to teach. That I needed to teach to change again. I really did not try to look at the positive side of this change. I really did try to look at the positive side of this change. Brian and Jim, Brian Schaefer and Jim Johnson, that is, are fabulous people, and I could not ask for better colleagues to help me through the transition. And I am sorry I will not be able to get to know them better. But in the end, I needed to ask myself, will these large changes for me in this district ever change? Every change has their challenges, and I can only speak to mine. But I think when teachers are expected to take on large changes to their positions, they should be given time to focus on that change in order to provide students with the best curriculum and to allow the teacher to get a life-work balance so the high level of stress can subside and burnout does not occur. I cannot constantly be expected to give so much of my free time to work without resentment, especially when compensation for all this work is never offered. It's hard not to be a little jealous of some teachers whose classes are nearly the same from year to year and they don't have the same struggles. I will not review the difficulties of my first years at East Troy, especially the first, but instead I'll just focus on the last few years. In 2019-2020, we all took on trimesters. Ideally, we should have been allowed a few years with our classes to adjust to this. However, on top of this, at the same time, I was also given a high-level content class to teach as well. I welcome teaching anatomy and physiology, and I knew if I was given the time, I could develop a strong curriculum. But through no control of the school, COVID struck, and a referendum did not pass. What did this mean for me? Another change. Now, in 2021, I was told I needed to also teach an AP class and teach it in all my other classes in person and virtually. Only teachers can appreciate the amount of work this was for all of us. During this time, I'm trying to teach myself high-level content, develop curriculum, prepare all my classes for virtual, including labs, still adjust to trimesters, and somehow keep my sanity. I didn't do a very good job of it, but I survived. Again, I told myself, if I can get through this past year, next year has to be easier. And it was, because at least I was not given any new classes to teach, but instead we needed to incorporate new books while I was still trying to improve high content level classes. I still spent my evenings and some of my weekends trying to do this. I really worked hard to set myself up so that the next year, the 22-23 school year, I might achieve some kind of balance. I was actually excited to focus on refining and improving an AP Biology and Anatomy and Physiology curriculum. I was teaching classes I wanted to teach and could use my time to really improve all those classes. I thought this was it. I could really enjoy my work life at East Troy. Then another referendum does not pass, and here I go again. I'm told to take on a new grade and content I have never taught before and do it in a different building and not in my own classroom. Really? Couldn't I have one more year to take the time to improve and feel comfortable with anatomy and physiology and AP before some big change again? And there it is. I have to ask myself, what kind of big unwelcome change will occur in 2 years from now that will cause me to use all of my personal time again to get comfortable with? Do I stay and hope for the best? That's what I've been doing for the past 7 years, and it hasn't happened. I can't keep giving this district so much of my personal time. I really wanted to have a good school year, work-life balance next year, so I could tell myself that this is my future. And if my classes hadn't changed, I felt like very likely that this could have. I have given so much of my personal time in order to do my best for students of East Troy, but I didn't feel like it was ever appreciated. I cannot keep giving my free time to school where I do not feel appreciated and spend so much of my personal time learning a new grade level content in school. There needs to be more appreciation for the work involved in preparing for another science class. Science is different from all other required core content. It is the only one students have to take, whether they want to or not, and the teacher needs to prepare and set up labs, which is very time consuming. Teaching a different science class every hour requires switching between all these labs on a regular basis. Science is as a subject to teach without learning new content, classes at the same time, is very time consuming subject to teach. I can't stay another year and keep hoping things will get better. I truly mourn what I thought I might be able to achieve and enjoy next year had changes to my position not occurred. I have met and worked with some fantastic people at East Troy High School. All the staff are amazing and supportive. The students really are great, and I have enjoyed teaching so many of them. The hardest part about leaving my position is leaving my department. I will cherish all I have learned from my fellow science teachers. Our personalities collaborated so well. Together we were able to create a solid science curriculum. I know that I have learned from each one of them that has made me a better teacher, and their support has helped me to get through all these years at East Troy. They are the hardest part to leave, and I will miss them very much. This has been a difficult letter to write. It has taken me some time to write it, and I'm crying even now as I finish it. I do not know if I'm making the best decision. I do not believe my new school district will be greener pastures, but they have made me feel needed and appreciated. I know that East Troy has the potential to be a great school district, but changes definitely need to happen. I wish everyone the best. Amy Viclave. The next one, Dear Dr. Hibner, I am writing to announce my resignation from the East Troy Community School District. It is my understanding that it will be presented to at the board July 11th, and that will be my last day of employment. I appreciate my time with the district and am grateful for the experience and opportunities the district has provided me. Many blessings to you and the district moving into the school year and beyond. Best, Cindy Borkenhagen. Dear East Troy School Board, please accept this letter as notice of my resignation from my position at East Troy Middle School for the 22-23 school year. I enjoyed my 2 years at East Troy working with many dedicated and compassionate administrators, teachers, and staff. Unfortunately, the instability of the district and lack of support and respect from both the community and the school board for the amazing teachers and staff in the district have made it impossible for me to continue my employment. Sincerely, Jennifer Sternberg. And the last one. Dear Dr. Hibner, please accept this letter of resignation from my position as the district's athletic director and future dean of students, pending board approval at my new district. I have received an offer to serve as the assistant principal for Burlington High School, which is the district where my family resides. While East Troy has become a second home for me, I could not pass up the opportunity to work in the district where I live. Please know this decision was not an easy one, as East Troy truly is a special place. The support and dedication from administration and staff is nothing but spectacular. I will have so many fond memories from my last 12 years in the various roles that I have had, whether that was teaching PE classes with my mentor, Linda Dodge, to celebrating many individual state championships and state records as a coach and fan, to working with all the coaches who give back so much to the school and community. I have no idea how fortunate I was to receive the .48 physical education position 12 years ago, nor did I know what doors and opportunities that would provide me. I am so thankful to be given the opportunity to work for this district, and cannot thank you enough for giving me the chance and opportunities to grow as a professional. I am fully aware that the timing of this resignation is less than ideal for the district, and I am more than willing to help and aid in the transition of my replacement past my end date of employment. I plan to leave with all fall athletics all set up and ready to go, as the fall season is already less than 1 month away. Lastly, against my better judgment and fear of missing someone, I would like to thank a few individuals who have provided me with so much support along my journey in East Troy. Many individuals are deserving of mention, but there are a few that stand above the rest. First, I'd like to thank Linda Dodge for my first mentor. She showed me how to enter each day with passion, excitement, and a willingness to be flexible as a teacher and a coach. Next, Ryan Holly, as he continuously shows what it means to be dedicated to a district, whether that is as an agricultural teacher, FFA advisor, or wrestling coach. He is an outstanding educator, but an even better friend. Thank you to Dr. Chris Hibner and Kathy Zwergzis for your continued support, guidance, and leadership through the many ups and downs over the years. The amount of time, the care, and the dedication that you give to this district is truly remarkable, and I will forever be grateful to have worked with you. Thank you to the supervisor team. I always enjoyed our time together as we worked through the challenges that we would face. Thank you to the building principals that I have worked with. Lindsay, Mark, and Pete were so great to be around and learn from, especially through the pandemic. Their poised ability to work together and keep all things in perspective is something I will always remember and most certainly miss. Lastly, thank you to Kent and Stacy. I feel like I could write a book on what you have done for me and for the community, but for the sake of time, I will simply say thank you. The relationship with you is what made the decision so difficult. I will miss our time together and cannot express enough how much our friendship means to me. I wish the district all the best. Go Trojans. Sincerely, Reed Oldenburg. That's it.
Make a motion to approve the resignations as presented.
Can you add for me, Ted, we're getting into the time of liquidated damages too, so pending liquidated damages.
Pending liquidated damages.
Second.
Discussion?
And to be clear, some will have them, some won't, depending upon their dates, so I'll be reaching out to those that do.
All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Staffing recommendations.
Yeah, we have quite a few of these too, and this is an exciting time, right? A transition, as we always say. Like, these are new individuals coming into our district that are excited about coming into our district. I love the interviews, the hiring processes we do, and I know every administrator and supervisor that's been doing these interviews, including myself, as much as it always is always sad to see people go, it's an exciting time to welcome these new individuals into our district too, and to make them feel like our family. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lindsay with some of hers.
I'm glad you said that, because I was just thinking that. I always feel like the shift at these meetings from the resignations to this is kind of that's heavy, but this is good, so. Okay, I have a few here. So the first one is a first grade classroom teacher. So this was due to a resignation. And actually, we worked through filling this one kind of right after our last meeting. So it feels like we worked through it quite a while ago, but we just missed the last meeting. So due to a resignation, we had 34 applications for this position. Amy and I reviewed the applications. A first grade teacher joined us on the interview team, and we talked with 6 candidates, debriefed and identified our top candidate. So I bring for your approval Mrs. Kamala Bailey. Kamala most recently comes to us from Waterford. She has some nice kindergarten and first grade experience, and she has experience with a lot of the things that we talk about: co-teaching, workshop models, engaging in different materials selections, which come up from time to time, intervention planning, things of that nature. So her references said wonderful things about her, described her as an exceptional educator, that she's intelligent, thoughtful, hardworking, committed. She has a calm and caring demeanor, and that she's amazing. So
That's Kamala for first grade. Can I just keep going through all of them, or do you have to do one?
We've done it both ways. Yeah. There's no
What's
rhyme
your
or
flavor
reason.
today?
There's a lot of them, so we can take them school at a time.
One school at a time? Sure,
Sure.
and keep going. Okay. So, well, and mine are funny too, because my next one is a Little Prairie View shared one,
Oh.
and then my third one
That's
is
fine,
District
that's
One.
fine.
No, I like that suggestion, but that'll still work.
One person, one speaker at a time. Okay.
I don't know, that's what he said, okay.
Because my next one is elementary art. So shared position between Little Prairie and Prairie View, kindergarten through 5th grade art teacher. So this position also open due to a resignation. We received 7 applicants for this position. Art becomes a bit harder to fill. So you can see that in the number of applicants we received. Amy, Mark, and myself looked through the applications. We selected 4 candidates to interview, answered several questions, and identified our top one. So we bring for your approval Stephanie DeRoba. Stephanie comes with a bit of experience being an elementary art teacher. She has been in Greenfield for 13 years. So strong references as well, describing her as a team player, that she puts students first. She's an excellent educator, is collaborative. Also highlighted that students love coming to art with Ms. DeRoba. So that is art. And my last one is physical therapist. So this is a district-wide position. So this open due to a resignation, but also a bit of a reconfiguration. So we previously partnered with Whitewater in sharing a physical therapy position. Our needs in the district and caseload is such that we really could use our own. So we have posted this position as a full-time position, no longer shared with another district. Again, you can see on the applications received, this is a pretty specialized position that requires a doctoral degree, much harder to fill. So, but the good news is the applicant we received, we really liked. So I bring to you Allie Lewick, who comes with some nice experience in physical therapy. She's had a variety of experiences with birth to 3 and working with young students, not necessarily in a school setting. So she's excited about her opportunity to be in a school setting, but her references describe her as enthusiastic and energetic. She's a self-starter, a productive contributor to team efforts, adaptable, dependable, detail-oriented. So she
And-
works well with families.
The increase from the half to full-time is going to be a transfer of service here because we had some kiddos moving in that had physical therapy needs. So we're going to be requesting that additional funding that way. Since we just talked about transfer of service about 20 minutes ago.
Yes, perfect. So those are my 3.
I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of Mrs. Stephanie DeRoba for elementary art, Mrs. Kamala Bailey for first grade, and Allie Lewick for physical therapy.
Second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So I have one middle school teacher to bring to you, Lauren Gothier. She is going to be an ELA teacher, and so this is in place of Kelly Reed's resignation. We had 5 applicants. Kent and I reviewed those applicants and selected 3. We asked all 3 to submit an initial video interview with some questions, screened them, then we brought them all in for a face-to-face interview. Kent, myself, Sarah Eckert, the coordinator of secondary teaching and learning, and Kelly Reed sat in on those interviews. We asked 15 questions about teaching and learning. and selected Lauren Gauthier. She comes to us with a Bachelor's of Science in Education from UW-La Crosse. She has a degree in education with a minor in English and just completed her first year of teaching as a 6th grade writing teacher. Her references indicated that Lauren is a team player, she's an outstanding educator, and a natural leader. Her current principal expressed her disappointment in losing Lauren as a member of her staff and stated that she will be a real asset to any district lucky enough to get her. Do you want to put principal with middle school? Okay, so that's all I have then for middle school teaching.
I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of Lauren Gauthier for the middle school ELA teacher.
Second.
Hey, discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Hello, I am representing the middle school and the high school with our middle school, high school business education teacher. We are recommending Melissa Dracosin. Melissa comes to us with a plethora. If you look at the synopsis on the bottom, she has a Master's of Science in Education that she's working towards at University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, Master's of Business Administration from Whitewater, with certificate in Management and Human Resources. She had a Bachelor's in Business Administration. She's a graduate of East Troy High School. And prior to coming to us, she was the supervisor of HR operations at Children's Hospital of Wisconsin. So you might have asked, as we did to her, why are you interested in coming to East Troy High School and middle school to teach business education? And I loved her response, so I'll read that. The desire to change fields stems from my love for business, education, and kids. It is a true alignment to my professional and personal interests and values. I am passionate about being a mentor, leader, and educator. The impact that teachers have is unmatched. I have always placed an incredibly high value on education, and as a parent, I have a genuine care for kids and students. I'm also an East Troy alumni and have a genuine passion for our community, which I have been part of for years. So it is our recommendation to hire Melissa Dracosin for middle school, high school business education.
I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of Melissa Dracosin for middle school and high school business education.
I'll second that motion. Discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Stacy.
The next one is the 1.0 East Troy Middle School principal. Did I miss something? Oh, okay. 1.0 East Troy Middle School principal. You'll see during it, I thought it was a pretty extensive process. I would imagine the candidates all would say even more so that it was. The screening process was done by myself, Amy, and Mark. From that, 6 out of the 16 applicants that were received for interest in the middle school principal, 6 interviews were held during the first round interviews. Those first round interviews, there were 2 teams that were involved in those first round. I was not involved purposely in the first round interviews. There was team 1 had Amy Fospanchik as the chair and Lindsay Harris as the chair. Brian Schaefer was representative, Stephanie Islandsey, Matt Burt, and Rebecca Peachy. Team 2 was Mark Wirtz as a chair and Stacy Keene as a chair, with Carrie McBurney, Laura Sprunk, John Wick, Kelly Wojcik, and Kathy Nichols. So we had a vast array of representation during that, and obviously some very strong situational questions and general questions that were done, and activities during that whole first round. Second round interviews then were conducted on Monday, June 20th, after it was narrowed down to 2 candidates from the 6. The interview team of those 2 candidates consisted of myself, Ms. Fospanchik, Sarah Eckert, Lindsay Harris, Mr. Wirtz, Ms. Keene, John Wick, Brian Schaefer, Andy Van Sistine, Reed Oldenburg, and Mr. Ted Zess. The interview process, I know that you guys can read it, but I still like to always tell people about it, because I think our district, I take great pride in how our district goes through the interviewing. It doesn't, as much as it's time consuming, we take our time hiring. And even though sometimes you feel like you're very time sensitive to have to get things done. We don't rush the hiring process. We recognize the investment that we're doing, so we want to get it right. The first round interviews, each candidate was asked a series of questions by each interview team, different questions by each interview team also. Some of these were situational questions. It's pretty easy to come up with situational questions, it seems like. We sit down as a group, and boy, do we have about 1 million of them that we can come up with, and narrowing it down is the hardest part. But all the situational and general questions, especially the general ones, they all align to our district's philosophy, our vision, and our district goals. So there's not a general question that doesn't align to East Troy. Like they don't go to any other district. They're questions that are aligned to us. Obviously with a heavy emphasis on that learner empowerment and personalization. During the second round of interviews, each candidate was interviewed for approximately 75 minutes. Again, more situational questions. They had a brief 15-minute interview with myself and Amy, in which they got to interview us. Due to the fact I'm a firm believer, especially in any type of leadership position, if you're going to possibly take a position in leadership, you really should know the people you're working with really well. And 15 minutes doesn't do it probably near enough justice, but as Amy is my witness being in there, I said, you can ask any single question. There's not a bad question. You're not being judged on your questions that you're asking. This is an opportunity to go, okay, so what's this district really about? What are you really about? How do you treat people? I said, this is your chance. Like, you got 15 minutes to figure out, is this gonna be a good fit for you or not? And ask anything and everything. And I think they really did appreciate that. Besides that, then they also had to do a data activity analysis. We gave them 90 minutes to complete, and I will tell you, they used all 90 minutes. I think they could have used 120 or 240. They were given the school perception survey of the middle school for last year and this year. They were given the forward exam data, cohort and grade level wise, for last year and this year. And then they were also, they were given another piece of data analysis, I don't have it in front of me. And so they had to look at all three of those components, and then I have them do basically like, not map data, thank you. And then I had them look at it from a standpoint of like a dissertation. So they had to write it from a standpoint of fact finding first. So I said, I just want to know the facts. I don't want to know your opinions. What's all this information telling you factually? So just tell me all the facts. Chapter 1, facts. Chapter 2, your opinions of those facts. Chapter 3, your recommendations to the superintendent about what needs to change. And so that was the first thing. Most of them wrote in the end, which I thought was really funny, both of them, and I really did appreciate it. They're like, we'll definitely need more time to talk to you about all this, which I thought was great. But it gets the wheels turning, right? And you learn a lot. You learn a lot about people through it all. So at this time, through all of that, we're proud to offer and are recommending strongly for the board Mr. Adam Trindle to come. Adam comes to us with a master's in administrative leadership from the University of Milwaukee, also a professional development and education master's degree from University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, and we're also at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse in 2004 received his education in Broadfield Social Studies. He recently was the assistant principal from July of 2020 to the present at St. Catherine's High School. He also was an instructional coach from October 2019 to the end of 2020 at Racine Unified School District. And prior to that, from 2005 to 2019, he worked as a teacher in the Union Grove Union High School as a high school history teacher. His references, just some of the things that they stated that I was really proud of, that I liked hearing, very strongly student-centered, works well with challenges, likes to have challenges, but is very collaborative through those challenges, but is very willing in the end to make decisions as needed for the best interests of the students, the district, and the school building. Works well with all stakeholders and has a strong instructional focus, and every one of the references stated believes he will be a very strong middle school principal and a good candidate to hire. So with that, we recommend Adam Trindle for the next East Troy Middle School principal.
I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of Adam Trindle for middle school principal.
1 second.
Okay, discussion? Okay. All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
And the final one is the 1.0 Director of Pupil Services. This position is open because of the recent resignation of Ms. Catherine Harder. So we had 11 applicants were received of interest for this position. We held 3 interviews. With those interviews, we had 3 teams due to the fact we wanted a broad representation because you're talking about the pupil service, special education departments. So we had 3 interview teams. We did only conduct 1 round of interviews. This was actually on the same day that we did the second round of interviews for the middle school principal. That was one heck of a day. I said, if I get everybody's name right, it's going to be a miracle. And so with that, we did the same type of formatting, but I will say through the 3 interviews, between every single interview in which they rotated between the interview teams, they always took a break for 15, 20 minutes, but it was an activity break, and so they always had to do a different activity in those breaks. One of the activities was a personality quiz, not a wrong or right answer, but one of the things that we really try to figure out, and by the way, our middle school principals had to do this too, we all of us on the administrative team have done the personality quiz, so we all have an idea of kind of the, if you want to call it color code of what our personality is. You know, are we strongly in the blue, which is the empathetic? Are we strongly in the orange, which is heavy vision? Maybe possibly all over the place a little bit, possibly me. And then you know, you have obviously yellow and green. Green is being very inquiry, science-based, data-driven. Yellow is more task-oriented, wanting to have somebody give them like direction, but then they'll work out all the action plans to things. So pointing at Amy behind her. So all those type of things, right? So all those different colors. And the reason we do this is it's not the end all, but we do like to have balance on our team. So we want to know kind of like, you know, off of it, if we have a certain balance or if we've lost a certain individual in one of those areas and they're the only individual, let's say, with that type of personality in that group, we do look to see like we may need to really strongly consider a person to replace this individual since we have nobody else that really has these skills strongly in their forte. So we look at that. The other thing that they did was the Director of Pupil Services is a highly, if Kate was here, she would tell you, and that is, it is a multitask job when you're looking at it from a standpoint of what they have to encompass in a day, week, month. But it's also about strong rules and regulations and law. And so with that being said, they had to do an activity in which we gave them about 20 different situations that might happen daily or definitely in a week or definitely in a month for sure. And they had to prioritize those 20, 1 through 20. Like, how are you going to take your day on when these different things come at you? And so we wanted to see a little bit of that prioritization because what normally might be in your day, right, can get changed very quickly on a different situation. So we wanted to know their thought process due to the fact some things are very time-bound and sensitive that you can't be like, I'll get to it when I get to it. No. Everything else gets dropped. That is a time-bound issue now that has days on it that we have to address it by. So that was another activity that they had to do. With all that being said, after that whole process, doing a thorough reference checking, we are thrilled to be recommending to the board the position to be offered to Amanda Jones. Amanda has multiple licensures included in the areas of Director of Special Education Pupil Services, Principal, Director of Instruction, Cognitive Disabilities, and Cross-Categorical Special Education, Master's degree in Educational Leadership. She has 14 years experience in education, 6 as an administrator to date, served as a CPI instructor for CESA 1 and Transition Improvement Grant, Director of Special Education at CESA 1, Director of Special Education Pupil Services at Palmyra Eagle at one time, and her references stated that she would be a great addition to our district and administrative team. Very student-centered, likes feedback, very organized is huge, and 100% committed to student learning, especially supporting students in needs of services. So at this time, administration would like to recommend Ms. Amanda Jones for the Director of Pupil Services / Special Education.
I'll make a motion to approve the hiring of Amanda Jones for the Director of Pupil Services.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. That's it? Thanks, Chris. for now. Yeah. Approval of donations.
You have two in your packets, $250 from Generac and $400 from Benchmark Landscape Management for the middle school reading garden.
Very nice. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the donation from Generac and from Benchmark.
Second that.
Discussion?
I'll just say thanks to my employer. They allow us to apply for grants for causes that are important to us in education, technology, engineering, et cetera, and approved our donation.
Nice.
So,
Very nice.
thank you.
Right. All in favor of approval, say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
The next one, just so you know,
Yeah, I know,
I figured you
starting
figured it out,
college now.
but it's
I got
CNA, not CAN, it's not CAN.
Yeah.
I think that was autocorrect or something.
There's too many acronyms, it could be CAN somewhere.
So last month we talked about, we've been talking about this, but last month I let you know that the applications would be coming forward. Just as a reminder, we are able to offer the CNA class through Start College Now. Typically, students have to go off campus to take that, but we are able to offer it this year on site, which potentially allows students who might have difficulty finding transportation to partake in it. And so the applications are in your packet. Just as a reminder, this is outside of the window that we typically see these applications. However, because we are able to offer this on campus, we're bringing that forward. It just typically will not happen. So in your packet, you have 12 applications for the fall semester. 5 of them are juniors and 7 of them are seniors, and we already have 4 that have expressed interest for the spring, so we just had them fill those out already. So we have 3 that are juniors and 1 senior interested in the spring. We do need 10 to run the class, so our fall class is at 12 already. We can run it. The spring, we still have another window for applications for spring, which will be coming to you in October, so we can add to that. The plan, if we do not have enough of East Troy students to run the class, then we will open that up to other districts in the area to invite them in to be able to take the class on site here.
What's the max number?
Stace, do you remember the max number?
12. It's 10 to 12.
There you go.
Oh,
12.
Okay.
So we're tapped out.
We're full.
We're tapped out, yeah.
Mhm.
It is. It's because of supplies and the number of like interactions and hours they need with certain activities.
Just curious.
Yep. So they are in front of you. Ted is working on signing them for me, and we will be moving forward with that.
And this is a new class, right? This is a new,
Yeah, well, we've had kids take this before, the CNA. It's been a really popular request through Start College Now, but this is the first time we'll be able to offer it here on site. And just as a reminder, it's a gateway instructor. It's not one of our instructors.
it's great.
Great opportunity,
I'm very
excited.
We need a motion?
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve the applicants for the CNA classes, Start College Now class.
Second.
Discussion?
What happens if there's more than 12? Do they get bumped to the next year, or is there a?
Yeah, we try to work with them in their schedule to go to the next semester,
Okay.
that,
Alright.
spring or fall.
Got it.
And you've talked to Gateway about the spring also? That's a possibility? They can be here?
As of right now,
As of now,
yes.
okay, good. Okay, any other questions? Okay. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of WIAA.
Ted, can I just say one more thing?
Yep.
I just want you to know that much of this comes from the work we did with students on the survey about career pathways. And so that's why we're trying to really offer things that our students are expressing interest in here at school.
Perfect.
I won't interrupt you again.
Sure. Next item, approval of WIAA high school membership renewal application for the 22-23.
Yeah,
school
this
year.
comes up each and every year, so, but we do need a formal motion and approval of it for us to participate in the WA, and then for Ted to be able to sign it and date it, and for us to be able to send this into WA. So it's part of an active motion. It also provides everybody an opportunity to look at what is provided on the boys and girls sports arena sides within our district, and to see that obviously the contact co-op through the soccer on the boys side, to see that the non-contact co-op for swim and dive on the girls and boys side. So it gives you an idea, just in case you're unaware of what is provided from an athletic standpoint within our district. But again, we do need a formal motion to approve of it.
So I'm familiar with the co-ops, but I don't know what contact co-op versus non-contact co-op means. Can somebody explain that?
That's a really good question, but that's with Burlington. That was the one in which we did not have at one time. We offered it, and then if you recall, Reed brought it up. Unfortunately, we had to end that non-contact co-op at one time due to the fact of making sure that we're meeting the Title IX and making sure that we had the same number of girls and boys programs offered. But now that wrestling is being offered on the girls' side, I believe, I'd have to look, even though it's not marked down there, I think they can participate in wrestling. On the boys' side, that allowed Reed to be able to offer the non-contact co-op. Now, Kath, do you know on the non-contact, is it just the bottom line? Is it probably a structure of the contract, I would imagine? Yeah, I'd have to reach out to Reed, which I'll reach out to him. I'll get him add a few more hours now that he's resigned still, but I couldn't answer it particularly. And
I guess I just don't know what it means for soccer specifically. I'm trying to understand. Are we co-oping with another district?
Oh, for the
Eagle Palmyra.
Yeah, for Eagle Palmyra, yeah, for
They
the
come here-
co-op.
they
yeah.
come here.
I just didn't know what the non-contact. The contact co-op is with Eagle.
Got it.
Palmyra
Thank you.
Eagle.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, we've had that for 2 years now, I think.
Yeah, and that's
Or
just on
3.
the boys.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. If we want to have a motion
Yep.
on that.
I'll make a motion to approve the WIAA high school membership renewal.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You got one to sign, or?
Yeah. Do you have one there right there? Ken?
Well,
Go ahead and sign that out.
got stuff on the
Oh,
back.
Well, so does mine.
Okay, I'll
You
sign
know,
that one.
just sign that, and then I'll copy just the front.
Okay. Next item, annual declaration and parent notice of district student academic standards.
Yeah, in August of, really quick, so this is a requirement. So in August of 98, every year you'll hear us bring this up in July or August. So in August of 1998, Wisconsin statutes required all local school boards to adopt pupil academic standards in mathematics, science, reading, writing, geography, and history. In history, since then, East Troy Community School District obviously adopted the Wisconsin academic standards, and any revisions that are made per DPI since then, and information on all that is available on the DPI website. All of the East Troy Community School District content aligns to those standards. However, one thing I always like to point out is for people to remember that standards are not the curriculum. And that, what I mean by that is standards are the performance expectations of each student. So basically, the state has told us in all those content areas, those areas of discipline, what are the performance expectations of kids in every single grade level, right? But now it's up to local districts to decide what's the curriculum. So what will be the resources provided to teach those certain performance expectations? What will be the assessments done? How the teaching is done, obviously, is able to be done by and determined by the teacher. So all those type of things, activities, resources. So those are the major things. And so on our webpage, what we have to make sure that people are aware of, that we're required by law, and that is that we do meet the Wisconsin standards, and that we have on our webpage the curriculum, which has the learning targets for every single discipline in our district available to community members. So if you wanted to see what your child was going to learn in third grade, if you wanted to see what the learning targets were in third grade for science, for mathematics, it is all available on the webpage. And those learning targets do align to the performance expectation standards of the state. So we're required by law to always acknowledge that and to bring it forth. That was, I think, a 2015 Wisconsin law, if I require, even Act 55, I think. That's required us to always do this annually each year. So based on that, I need the board to make a motion approving of the annual declaration and parent notice.
I'll make a motion to approve the annual declaration and parent notice pursuant to sections 120.12, 13, and section 118.30, 1GA of the state statutes.
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Seclusion restraint report per board policy 411.1.
Yeah, I apologize. I mean, some of this is just plain reading, right? But obviously, we're stating it to the public for them to hear. I know that everyone has it within their packets. Kate did this before she left. This is required each and every year of the school district, and we usually present this in July or August. Let me just read a few parts, and I apologize, but it's very informative. So on March 4th, 2020, 2019 Wisconsin Act 118 went into effect, which expanded upon the prior rules and regulations that have been set forth under the 2011 Wisconsin Act 125 and applies to both special education and regular education students. The legislation applies to school staff, including independent contractors and their employees, student teachers, and law enforcement officers working in the school. Under 2019 Wisconsin Act 118, several changes to the prior legislation were enacted. These are important changes because it discusses then the data points that you see later on. These changes include the specific prohibition of prone restraints, extended the notice and reporting requirements to include law enforcement officers, and revising the required training components to include the assessment of trained individuals to identify prohibited techniques. Additionally, 118 requires that a meeting after each incident of seclusion or restraint be conducted with the staff involved, and requires that an IEP team meeting be conducted within 10 school days of the second time seclusion or restraint is used on a student with a disability within the same school year. While reporting requirements to the governing body itself from schools remain present, Act 118 added a requirement for each governing body to submit an annual report to DPI by December 1st. Notably, the changes in Wisconsin Act 118 now require private schools who may have students placed in their buildings by an IEP team to follow the same rules and regulations regarding seclusion restraint, including parent notification, district notification, and training requirements. I bring that to your attention because within the data itself, all of that is compounded within the data. So when you look at that data, it's not just students that physically attend the East Troy school districts. And I think that's really important to take note of. The other thing that Kate provides in there is then definitions, which I think some definitions are really important. She defines clearly what physical restraint is and what is not considered physical restraint. She defines seclusion, and she does not define it. She just reiterates what Wisconsin Act 118 does and what is not considered seclusion. I think that's really important information due to the fact people have a perception of thinking about what maybe restraint, physical restraint and seclusion is, and oftentimes it does not meet that definition. So I think that's really important. The other thing that I want to point out is on the training requirements, which I'm proud of in our district. Wisconsin Act 118 requires that each school where physical restraint may be used, but must have at least one staff member who has received training, and that no untrained staff may physically restrain a student. In East Troy, we have chosen to train nearly 100% of our special education staff in nonviolent crisis intervention training, NVCI, techniques, as well as building administrators and pupil services and other staff who may be required to assist depending on the situation. That goes well beyond what's the requirement, and I'm proud of that fact. And I will say it gets harder and harder every year when you're having turnover. Trainings get harder, and that becomes a little more difficult. While this program trains staff in methods for physical restraint, the core focus of the training is to prevent or intervene prior to the need of physical restraint. Basically, the primary focus is de-escalation, not the physical restraint. But unfortunately, sometimes there has to be physical restraints done. So with that being said, Kate has put together a data report that demonstrates clearly the number of incidents of seclusion that occurred this year within buildings, total number of students involved in the seclusion, total number of students with disabilities involved in the seclusion, number of incidents of restraint, total number of students involved in restraint, and total number of students with disabilities involved in the restraint. And again, I point out that those are not just of students that attend physically the East Troy School District. Then the next report is on, oh, I'm sorry, you guys have to, oh, that's just informational discussion
Yep.
anyways.
No, you can move on to the next
So
one.
can I move on to the next one? All right, so the next one is the bullying and harassment report. Since 2017-18 school year, we have been using Safe Schools online reporting system for bullying and harassment complaints through the module provided to us through our insurance policy. While we have used online reporting since 2015, this system now allows us to receive tips through the website, text, phone, or email. While looking into parent and student concerns regarding bullying and conflict, the pupil service team remains committed to the work, continue to focus educators and staff and students about the differences between each area, especially between conflict and bullying. Definitions for each are listed on the form that individuals complete, yet many typical peer conflict as being something which is less common, such as bullying or harassment. And I do want to, I'm going to state this for the record. So definitions: conflict, a struggle between two or more people who perceive they have incompatible, opposite conflicting goals. Conflict is a normal part of life, and it occurs because people of the same relative power see the same situation just in two different perspectives. Conflict happens every day to a degree, right? And not only amongst students, amongst adults all the time too. But bullying is different, right? And oftentimes you'll hear somebody use that terminology, and it's truly conflict. And what we have to do is investigate it to determine which level is it at. Bullying is deliberate or intentional behavior, using words or actions intended to cause fear, intimidation, or harm. Bullying may be repeated behavior and involves an imbalance of power. We also go on to define harassment and hazing. I do want to point out to everybody that those definitions are within our policies. So we have defined policies on all of this, which obviously then state that we report out on all this information to the board too. So please look up our policies if you're ever in question. The data demonstrates clearly then the total allegations that were made. And then from there, I like what Kate did in the next part, and that is allegations which were valid per the investigations looking into. So we tell you all, here's all the allegations that were made that include either possibly conflict or bullying or harassment, even hazing. Here's all the allegations. And then through the investigation, we talk to you about which ones were valid complaints that met those definitions and where. So you'll see that some of the conflicts, right, stayed conflicts, but some of the numbers that were within the bullying of the allegation that was brought forth went into conflict, right? They don't all stay in the same area. So I think that's kind of important. She also then, with the help of the building principals, shares the information of major disciplinary referrals and the harassment allegations. And on the harassment allegations, obviously she's going from an aspect of the protected classes, right? So you'll see like it's based on the race, sex, disability, religion, sexual orientation, national origin, ancestry, creed, pregnancy, marital or parental status. And you can see where those harassment allegations were and then which ones were validated. So we're, such as you'll see in the middle school, there may have been harassment allegations on, let's say, that involve sex, but then were they validated? At the high school, you'll see that there were maybe 5 that were brought forward and 3 were validated. And so she did that with the help of the building principals and everyone else in regards to all the protected areas within harassment. I'll read Kate's final paragraph because I think it's an important one here, and that is, it should be noted that while allegations were down during the 1920 and 2021 school years, overall the numbers of complaints and allegations that were received during the 21-22 school year were similar to what they had been prior now to COVID-19. However, while bullying behaviors have been decreasing over time, harassment behaviors, particularly as related to protected classes such as sex, race, disability, sexual orientation, national origin, and religion, have been increasing over time. The importance of the continuing and increasing focus on social-emotional learning and instruction across developmental levels has been working towards developing learners' understanding of individual differences and perspectives in an attempt to foster student acceptance and better prevent such behaviors. So I just thought, great report, has a lot of information in it, and a report that we look at yearly in comparison to the historical data. That's it.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on those two reports? Okay. Next item, enhancement supplemental compensation.
Yeah, this was put into executive session, but it actually will not even need to occur tonight. So you can strike that from the record.
And consideration of land negotiations for possible heritage expansion.
Yeah, and that'll go into executive session since it involves negotiations.
Okay. Reports. You're up first.
Whew, it's kind of long. I feel like I've done talking. No comment, no comment. I already talked about the Wisconsin policy, public policy information within the board packet. So I just reiterate to everybody, since Kathy brought up, shared that it's on the website, to look that up. I think it's really important information from trends perspectives. We do have a general board workshop session this Wednesday, July 13th. It'll be over at the district office. It's posted. It's an open session. It will not go into close due to the fact it's a workshop session. We're not discussing personnel or anything like that. But it's a workshop session for the board in which I'll be present. During that session, what I guess I'd like to ask all of you is, the primary thing that's on the posting is the board looking at their board survey results together that you have taken. If we have time, looking at the staff survey results, which I think we'll have time on that, with how it's being planned a little bit, due to the fact I think the two go hand in hand. It's important to look at, how does maybe the board survey and the staff survey align and not align at certain times, right? And the differences, and having discussions on that. I don't think we'll have time on the student survey, which is from the school perceptions. There's a lot of data to the student one, but we at least can go through some of the questions that are asked, so you have a better understanding and idea, and then what information would you like to be shared in the future from that. But that'd be the primary aspect, because I think it's really important for the board to, I know referendum and just the overall funding and just our needs of services are a huge standpoint up there. But I think this discussion is really critical to have first, from a standpoint of just kind of understanding how to work through, and not that we don't, but seeing the differences and then saying, well, what are those differences, and working through those differences a little bit without it being about a specific topic, more about just general beliefs, I guess, or just perceptions. Perceptions, probably even a better term, right? But then what I would like to ask you is, and we can do this tonight, so because more people are probably going to be paying attention tonight than they would be at that type of meeting, but that is, would we want to set up then another meeting following that, and we could do that tonight already, and that's another board workshop session, which is more about the referenda. And kind of like, okay, that was the first workshop session, and that's more about kind of the board and its, just collegial, how do you work through differences and all those type of things. And then identifying, okay, now the second one is, we're going to actually discuss in the workshop session referenda. And we're going to talk, we're going to kind of work through that. And what'll be nice is kind of referring back maybe to that first meeting, right? Like every once in a while when, as you have these discussions, right, there's going to be conflict. Like, come on, right? That's natural when you're just trying to think about solutions and ideas and challenges. And so you can kind of refer back to that first one, like, okay, what are some of the norms that we want to always keep exhibiting while we work through challenges together, right? And so, and then one of the things that we were thinking that would come out of that is the discussion about community engagement. Like, what does that mean, right? So we've done now staff surveys. We've always done student surveys. We've done them ever since I've been here on student side. And I'm going to go through tonight the family satisfaction survey, as I put in the booklet, your agenda booklet with you. So you're going to see that, and if all's good there, that's getting sent out on Wednesday to all families. And so we'll have that information coming back. Now, that might be something you want to wait for to get all that information back. However, we're going to leave that open until, I don't remember what I even said in there, I think the 20th, maybe off the top of my head, of July. maybe even later. So that might be some, but we could always have another meeting after that too, but you might be like, yeah, let's wait. I really want to see what the family satisfaction survey says, because I think there's going to be some really good information there. But with that, I think another topic that should be done in that workshop session is, so from a community engagement, what do we want out of it, right? I think there has to be dialogue and discussion. That sometimes we work towards these solutions, and we're all solution-oriented people. I really believe that, right? But I think the process sometimes is more critical than the solution. And so I think we have to talk about the process, right? And from the board's perspective, how do you want to navigate the community engagement? And I think there's a vast array on what that could look like, because it's dependent upon what you're looking for feedback on, right? Or which feedback you're like, don't really care for that feedback. I just care for knowing this information, right? And so I think you have to decide that. And so one of the things I would ask is, if we do that on the community engagement side, is we would have a person who's pretty knowledgeable on the community engagement, and she would be there presenting, not us. She would be there to kind of facilitate. And she's got certain questions. She's already met with us, certain questions that she believes would be really good to facilitate. Like, what does that mean for you guys? And it's not setting you up. It's questions for the five of you to kind of go, yeah, what do we mean by that question? Or what, which way do we want this to go? Like she said, that drives so much of everything. But the board has to feel comfortable about answering those questions before you come to your, not solutions of the referendum, solutions of the engagement. So again, the 13th, we know what that meeting's about. And I'm not looking for 4-hour meetings. I don't think you guys were either. I mean, I'm hoping for 90 minutes, 2 hours tops, right, for that first workshop session. But then when would you like to have the second one, which I think should be about referenda, community engagement. And I would even say community engagement, referenda.
Yeah, referenda, yep.
Yeah, it's about, I think if you would talk, Doreen's gonna help lead this. I think she would tell you, you gotta have that community engagement discussion before you get to referenda discussion. And so, because it'll help, right, with the dialogue. So when would you like to have that discussion? And you probably don't need to have the family satisfaction survey back to have that discussion. But you might want to have another meeting on when you get the family satisfaction survey back too. Sorry, but it's going to be some meetings.
I'd like to meet as long as it takes every week until we have it all figured out. I mean, I said last month, I'm not sure what the referendum answer will be or the timing, but I think we have to move quickly as though we're trying to figure it out quickly, and whether it goes on a ballot in November or April, we'll have done the homework to figure out what it is. I don't think we can sit back. I mean, I'll meet 6 hours on Wednesday and every Wednesday until we have it figured. I don't know what's more, there's a lot of things more important than this, but I don't know what's more important than this right now. So, as far as I'm concerned, every Wednesday until the work's done.
Well, we should pick some dates coming up that people are free for follow-up meetings. So I don't think we get it all done on Wednesday, no matter what.
No, every Wednesday until we get through it, or whatever day of the week works for people. And maybe we'll get through it quickly, and then we can go forth and.
So do you want to do, off of what Anna's proposing, do you want to put July 20th, the following Wednesday, for the next workshop session right away? Does that work for people?
I'm gone the last 2 weeks in July,
Okay.
so I don't know what others' schedules look like. Fortunately, it's vacation season.
Yeah, I'm gone the last week in July and the first week in August, but outside of that, no more planned out of town.
Well, we could.
Are you able to, in theory, if there are meetings and we hold them, can people call in?
Sure.
I'm not trying to be a jerk, I just feel like, I don't know, I feel an incredible sense of urgency to make some decisions, so. I know it's summer, I know it's not fun, but. Dr. Hibner, can we have the survey results that you are planning to go through on Wednesday, can we get them tomorrow?
Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to pre-read.
What does everybody think for a follow-up meeting?
Next Wednesday, I'm available.
Me too.
Can call in.
Yeah, I mean, if you're all available, it doesn't matter if it's via Zoom or Google Meet, we can make that work. If you're not available, I would say then we gotta figure out days, because it doesn't do a lot of good to have the meetings on this stuff if 5 of you can't be available online and in person, one way or the other.
Right.
To have 3 of you you're starting all over the next time you meet.
Mm-hmm.
Next Wednesday, I'll be somewhere where there's not service or Wi-Fi. So if it's Tuesday, maybe I could be here Tuesday in person. We're leaving Wednesday, though.
Which days did you say, Adam, again?
The 20th, I won't be available for even a call, but the 19th, I'm still around.
Are you available on the 21st?
No, 20th through the 24th, I'm out of range.
What if we did I can get everything put together by, it's a busy day, but July 18th, a Monday. Does that work for people?
I'm gonna be not available 18th.
You're not available on the 18th?
19th I could do.
How about the 27th? It's a Wednesday.
Adam and Ted, you guys are gonna be gone, but are you available
I can call
online?
in. Yeah, that's not a problem.
That's okay, and Adam, are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. The 20th would be okay. I got my weeks mixed up. My apologies. Yeah, we're not leaving until the 27th. So next week, Wednesday, I'd be able to do in person. I'm sorry.
I wasn't gonna get into your vacation, but I remember you said the last week of July.
Yeah, I'm
first week
sorry.
of- But I didn't wanna overstep my bounds.
Calendars, you know, calendars.
Yeah. So the 20th, so we can go back to the 20th.
Yes.
Does that work?
I can call in. That's
All
not a
right.
problem.
All right, so we'll do the following week on July 20th, and that'll be the discussion on the community engagement, which then kind of leads itself to the referendum. But majority of that night will be on community engagement led by Doreen about asking you guys specific questions to figure out where do we want to go with that.
Mm-hmm.
What time?
Does 5:30 work for everybody if we stay consistent with that time?
Yep.
And we'll do it at district office again? Perfect. Then, is our next board meeting on the 8th? Yeah.
Yes.
The 8th. Okay. So do we want to have one before that again, or do we want to wait until the 8th?
You said you're gone that first week, Adam, in August?
Yeah, then after the 20th week, then I'm gone that next week and the following.
Is that a long agenda for the 8th, or what's typical first week in August? Okay.
Well, we have 2,
Right.
so we can always split them up pretty evenly, so it's not like a huge, I mean, the main
Mhm.
thing is we just always need it for staffing, right?
Right.
So I think we can keep it fairly short.
Totally.
So we
Try
can
to
put-
start early,
we can
start
make-
earlier on the 8th, possibly.
Sure.
I got a problem is that I have a COVID protocol. I gotta isolate the 6th, 7th, and 8th for a test on the 9th.
So you won't be there at the 8th at all, Dale?
No.
Would you be available if to come in on a Google Meet or a Zoom link that night?
I suppose I could.
I'm not trying to, I'm just
Yeah,
wondering.
I just have to.
We
take-
could send you an invite, and then you could just attend via one of those links.
We could do that probably.
So, do you want to meet earlier, or do you want to just have that part of the agenda? You guys, the referendum on there, and we decide where we're at, and you guys can, it's on there to keep moving forward with it on the 8th.
That would probably be fine as long as it's not like you mentioned, an
Yeah.
overly ambitious
So
agenda.
make that the primary topic of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds great.
And then I'll send a link to you, Dale, for that meeting. And Ted, I'll send a link to you for the 20th.
20th, yes.
Thanks, Ted.
I'll get off the boat just for you.
Thank you.
Okay,
And the rest of us.
all right. We'll go with that.
Okay. Anything else, Chris?
Geez, sorry, one final thing. So family satisfaction survey is in the book, in your board booklet there. One of the things I did want to point out was, it's almost all the same, but we did add on the front page, you'll see where it says, basically just getting the demographic information. We add it when people were asked, which schools do your child or children attend, and select all that apply. We added an area that says my child did not attend this district during the 21-22 school year, because we have people obviously registering, right, where their kids have not yet attended, either transferring in or coming in. And so we still want them to be able to take this, but they might not be able to rely upon anything, right? But they still could do the district questions. So the direction of the district questions, they just can't do the building questions. So they can fill out all the district direction questions, like do they believe in the 6 Cs? Do they believe that we should have proper resources for service? I mean, you can answer that no matter if your children have yet attended here or not. That might be why you're coming here. So I just wanted to point that out. And then if people were wondering, like, well, how is this going to get separated for analysis if your child's attending more than one, if you have children attending more than one grades, more than one school and all that, they don't have to take this numerous times. So they just select all that apply. So if you have a child that's in Little Prairie and Prairie View in the middle school, you'll select all 3 buildings, you'll select all the grades they're in, and then you're going to go through that, and you're going to do one district, right? But then you obviously, you said you had a child in Little Prairie, a child in Prairie View, a child in middle school. The middle school one will come up, the Little Prairie one will come up, and the Prairie View one will come up. So that's how it'll get desegregated. So, but other than that, I think, all I'm gonna urge the people, it's not a community survey, this is a family satisfaction survey, but I urge every family that receives this on Wednesday, between then and the date that we say it closes, please complete it. Please complete it. It's so important. It is so hard to make decisions of what you think other people want if you don't get enough of the information back, right? Then you're just going off of your own beliefs again. So it's really important, and let's be honest, most survey people will tell you, survey responses, that if you can get about 30% back, they say that's really successful. I'm gonna call it out. I think that's pathetic. All right? I get it. I'm not picking on their world. That's the world they live in, and that's honestly what they always get back. They think if they get 30% back, that it's been a pretty highly successful response rate back, and you should be able to make good decisions off of it. I think if we wanna really know things about our district, and your children are attending here, we need to have 75, 80% response rate back. I mean, it's your children. So please tell us what you're in favor of, what's going well, what's not going well. That's how we can make decisions and adjustments on practices and programming and honestly the direction of the district from a philosophical standpoint in funding and everything. So please, we really do want the feedback. And I know I speak for the board when we say, and this survey will not take you more than 10 minutes tops. And that's dependent upon if you have more than one child in a building. If you have one child, it probably won't take you that long. If you have multiple, it might take you 10 minutes or a little bit more. But I think all the questions, they're not very repetitive at all, but each one has a strong reason why it's being asked. So from school climate to learning, to connections, to our facilities, to the transportation, to the food service department, to the overall how you feel about your child's school that they're attending, to our communications, and then again to the district kind of overall landscape, the district direction. Like, we really want to know if we are on the right path on what, as parents, you want for your children. I always say this, my degree's in education, right? I just think go pre-K-12 education. I'll be blunt. Sometimes I think that's the most frustrating thing for us as educators is sometimes when, we've had so much schooling in education, right? I mean, my whole schooling's been now in educational leadership primarily. And that can get frustrating sometimes when somebody you know, who went through a pre-K-12 education talks to you like they've been through the whole educational leadership too. And it's like, no, that's, I'm not saying I don't listen, but that's kind of a knowledge area, right? And you have to listen. But what I also get frustrated on is when people have an opportunity to really give feedback, they don't take advantage of that sometimes. And so I ask, because it's not so much, and I think these 5 board members would say that, right? They're representative of the community. They have strong, probably, beliefs themselves about what they want for education. So do all of us administrators. But in the end, I've always said this as superintendent, I can share the research and all the knowledge I have on educational leadership, but in the end, it's really about what the people in the East Troy Community School District, or East Troy community want. That's really it. I mean, and then we just have to align, like, beliefs and what the research says to what the people are saying they want. What the people are saying they want. Even if sometimes, I'll be honest, I might be hitting my head, like, we need to want, I'll be blunt, I'll say it sometimes, like, we need to want more maybe, or we need to do this. Well, maybe we'll get there. The people who I work with, they know that sometimes I'll pound my head on the table, but then I take a step back after I bruise my forehead and I go, you know what, it's just gonna take some time. It's just gonna take some time. It's not that people maybe don't want something, they just need to learn about it. They need to understand it more, and that's our job, I would say, to help people understand that more. But it's the people of East Troy's job to tell us what they want for their children. And then it's our job to figure out that direction, to make that work. So, please fill out the survey. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Chris. Kathy?
And survey. Speaking of surveys, in front of you, we do this every year at the close of the open enrollment window, which is April 30th. So in May, we send this out to all our families who newly open enrolled out, and then we collect the information. And I am noticing that I didn't put how many families it was mailed to at the top this year.
It's somewhere in here.
Well,
That was at the beginning.
it doesn't fluctuate too much. It's usually about 45 to 50, so you can think of that number. But you'll see we had 21 surveys returned, and then it goes through all the different questions that are asked every year so that we can try to identify trends. I'll be honest, again, I read through this, and my response was kind of the same as it is every year, that I don't see a lot of significant, like, it's this number one reason that we need to address that people open and roll out. It's usually a multitude of different reasons, different for every family that takes the survey. Because I certainly would, if there was something that East Troy could do to change your mind about deciding to open and enroll, 13 said no, 1 said maybe, 2 said yes. And again, you have your history of what people have responded for the different questions about what they like about East Troy, what they don't like. So it mostly just for your reading, and if you do see something that you want us to address, let us know.
Do we also send a survey to the families who open and enroll in?
No,
Have we talked about that?
we make contact with them. That's Amanda, and I know she has various number of questions she asks them, and even after the school year starts, how are things going? That kind of. But not a formal link in a survey.
All right, thanks, Kathy. Nothing tonight, Amy? Okay. Policy review and development, and nothing tonight. Communications announcements? Nothing? Okay, future items. Anybody have anything for the board for future topics? Okay. Then I will make a motion to adjourn to executive session for consideration of land negotiations for possible heritage expansion as provided under 19.851B, 19.851C, and 19.851E.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call vote. Steve? Adam?
Yes.
Dale?
Yes.
Anna?
Yes.
And I vote yes.